Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Sean here, thinking about Star Wars. How could I not be thinking about Star Wars? Star Wars has been kind of took over this past weekend. New trailer, Star Wars Celebration, and you know what? I kind of like really got into it. I'm not. I would say I'm kind of a lapsed Star Wars fan in a lot of ways. Always, it's always been part of my life. It's a big part of my childhood and growing up and whatnot. But I've kind of been down on the series, not just before the prequels either. Just like I kind of not lost interest, but I don't know how to describe it. It's just like never, not in the forefront of my mind anymore, I guess. And in terms when I think back on things that impacted me a lot, like I'm more. If you were to ask me, what I was more into when I was a kid, I would probably say something like The Thing. Um, John Carpenter movies, Terminator, Alien. Cause that's just more, I guess, where my dad's influence came in. Cause that's, it's either people or other kids or whatever. But my biggest influence in terms of a movie fan and even like a gamer is a lot of it has to do with my dad. And that's the kind of stuff he was watching a lot. Like, we used to watch, like, RoboCop and Terminator on pretty regular, like, rotation at my house as a young kid. And now that may seem kind of crazy to you. You're like, oh, yeah, your dad's a bad guy. Like, always letting you watch all this stuff. It's like, no, not really. I mean, it's like, because they're violent and there's sex and stuff like that. It's just like, my dad wasn't really closed-minded about that stuff in a certain way. Like, he liked watching them with like me and a few of my siblings and like that wanted to watch it, and we'd talk about it, and we'd have like really long, lengthy 3-4 hour discussions about our favorite franchises and whatnot. And Star Wars was definitely a part of it. It just wasn't the biggest part of it. There was a lot of things that overshadowed Star Wars when I was a kid. But having said that, always was a really big fan. Always really loved the original trilogy at the very least. I was really excited, when the new Star Wars movies started coming out, or the prequel series, before I saw them, really. Because and I know it's like kind of fashionable, I guess, to dog on that series, although it's kind of coming around where people are kind of like giving it a second look, second consideration. But they're just objectively not that great of movies. Like, they're not really well made. They're boring. There's nothing in there that you don't really already know, and that's a shame, because you had something. I guess the idea of watching Darth Vader turning Darth Vader is more exciting in concept than in action, which is unfortunate. But I think a lot of that has to do with they kind of like breeze over a lot of the more exciting aspects of that. You kind of wanted to spend more time with Anakin and learn about like why he fell. Like, what would give him these feelings, but you wanted to see him as a good person first. And I don't think the movies gave you enough of like good person Anakin. He's always too conflicted. And I'm not even talking about Hayden Christensen's performance, which is honestly it's probably not his fault. I've seen him in other things and he's fine. But he is really bad in the prequel series, and I don't think that's his fault. I think the blame of that you could probably throw down on old Mr. Lucas. But yeah, so like I was saying, kind of a lapsed fan. And I mean, because a lot of that, when I got older, I realized like I don't really love Return of the Jedi. And actually, last night I was so kind of hyped on Star Wars just from this weekend, and I was just like, oh, I'm actually going to watch them. I own all of them. I have that Blu-ray box set. I totally do. Like, because I'm a movie nerd, and I just buy shit. Like that. I just have a cornucopia of things that I just own. Because I'm a collector. That's my kind of vice. Is like, I like to collect video games. I like to collect movies and Blu-rays. I'm not really into the whole digital thing yet. It's still kind of, I'm still really hesitant to dive into that field. Although like I've been cutting my teeth on buying TV shows on Amazon, like while they're airing, because I don't have cable. But I still feel uncomfortable because it's not tangible, and it could be taken away from me at any time. Hell, it could be taken away from me if I forget my fucking password, and that kind of like stuff like that just I find alarming. But anyway, so I watched them, and I ended up watching all three of them right in a row. And my consensus is still the same. A New Hope is fantastic. It's very simple. It's like really ABC like things. They give you just enough character flavor to like kind of get an idea of who they are, but there isn't really a ton of things that happen. There isn't like a ton of, I don't know, like world building in a directed way. Like the world building is all in the background, and it's really successful in that too. It creates a really tangible world that you don't know anything about, and it doesn't feel the need to explain it all to you, which is important because it'll let your imagination kind of fill in the gaps. Then you have something like Empire, the sequel, and it's much more pointed. It's much more the characterizations are way better. Like, you get to know them as people and as human beings, and you really, really, they're really endearing. Like the performances, everything's just great. Like, and that again is a movie where not a ton of shit happens, not really. But the thing with that was it gets away with it because it doesn't really have to. Like, it has enough of these major beats, has enough character exploration that you're having fun the entire time watching it. Because I know Empire kind of gets pointed at as being, well, that's like the dark middle chapter. And while it is darker than A New Hope for sure, it's not as dark as, like, I guess maybe your memory might lead you to believe. It's because we remember the dark, bad shit that happens. We remember, like, the lightsaber fight with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and his big reveal of being Luke's father. Like, those are the things that you think of when you think of Empire. You think of the Imperial Walkers. Like, you think of Han getting frozen in carbonite. Like, those are the things that come to mind, but there's actually a lot of humor. It really balances it all really, really well. Even, like, take, for instance, the whole Dagobah sequence, when Luke's on Dagobah with Yoda and he's training to be a Jedi, like, that, most of that is played for comedy. Even though there's some, like, most of the gravely serious things that happen to Luke Skywalker as a character take place on Dagobah. All these personal revelations and stuff that he has. And then the Force kind of trying to tell him, basically, that Darth Vader is his father. But it's still balanced with humor. Like, most of that sequence is played more for laughs. Like, Yoda is a funny dude. He's a funny character. And I think that's really cool. And I don't know if you could say brave, but it's not something I would imagine you would see working in a movie nowadays. People would be too afraid of a character like Yoda to be kind of unabashedly goofy and also like the linchpin of like some of the most serious shit in the story. Like, that's kind of impressive, and it was something I enjoyed last night while watching it. Well, then I came to Return of the Jedi. And I think Return of the Jedi has a great opening 20 minutes and a great closing like 20 minutes, a half hour. That's kind of my opinion. I think even like the cast just doesn't feel I'll say this, with the exception of like Mark Hamill and Anthony Daniels, C-3PO, they're all putting in like the work that they had in the other ones. They're the most consistent. But like Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford, not so much. Like, those are so like phoned in performances. I don't know if that it's them or if that's the director at the time, because from what I understand, just being a movie nerd and watching documentaries, listening to commentaries and whatnot, like, there was a lot of problems on set because this guy didn't really know how to deal with a FX budget movie, and it was said that George Lucas did actually direct a lot of Return of the Jedi, which is kind of funny because it makes sense in terms of like where he actually went with directing the prequels, because it is a little bit goofier, it's a little bit more lighthearted. The fucking Ewoks, characters I can't stand. I'm sorry. Like, I cannot get on the Ewok train. I've tried for years. I watch these movies probably like once every 2 or 3 years. I'll end up watching all of them. All 6 of them. Which is exhausting. Because once you get to the end of Revenge of the Sith, you're like, oh, fuck, I don't want to watch anymore. And then if you can talk yourself into watching A New Hope, you're like, oh, fuck, this is actually pretty awesome. But anyways. But yeah, like, Harrison Ford, even on record, has said like he thought Han Solo should die. He did not really want to be in Return of the Jedi, and whether that's personal reasons or he felt like it was like an arc that had been completed, I don't know. I have a feeling he was just ready to move on with his career. He was making, at this point, he's doing Indiana Jones, he's doing a lot of like thrillers and stuff like Witness, and like, so he had kind of become more of an actor on a hot streak at the time, and I guess maybe he just was like, oh fuck, I don't want to go make another Star Wars. But yeah, he actually argued to have them kill off Han Solo, and I think it shows. Like, and I think Harrison Ford's the type of actor, like, if he doesn't really want to be there or he feels like he's collecting a paycheck, I don't think he was really very present, and I think you see that a lot in like some of the newer movies that he does. So you know, and when I was watching it last night, I was like, holy shit! Like this is Harrison Ford completely checked out. Like does not care, and it's too bad because he's actually a kind of a big part of Return of the Jedi, in terms of like what the rebels are doing on Endor, the Ewok planet, I guess. God, those Ewoks! I tell you, like I've argued for years. People, it's either just one. I think it's something you either just like or don't like. You can either get behind, and it's not because there are Ewoks in there. Is that they hold such an important role in like the rebels fighting off the Empire. Like these creatures that are basically just like fucking eat everything. Like if you remember, like you know when they first get captured by the Ewoks are gonna eat them. Like these, they're not these noble forest creatures. But I guess I mean that's perspective, I suppose. Like you know, depending on your perspective. Well, they're forest creatures. This is their natural habitat. Maybe they just want to fucking eat, and they eat whatever they can. You know, slim pickings, and on the forest of Endor. They're like, oh shit, look, we can eat meat. We don't have to eat these goddamn roots that Wicket keeps bringing back. You know, because, you know, there's a lot of cute, funny characters in that series, but they're not given as much prominence, and I think it's like, almost like it's proto-Jar Jar stuff. Like, you know, most people, I'm sure you're not surprised, I'm sure you probably agree that Jar Jar Binks is, you know, the most derided character in the Star Wars saga, the franchise. People do not like Jar Jar Binks. And it's for a myriad of reasons, really. Some people think he's a racist stereotype. They think that all the Gungans are racist stereotypes, for that matter. Some people think it's just because he's not funny and he's annoying and blah, blah, blah. He's cloying. You know, his jokes fall flat. And yeah, he is. He's a lame character. And I think even if people were to say, well, you know, Episode 1, Phantom Menace is a kids movie. It was aimed at children. So what? Like, you know, you don't need to speak down to children either. You know, there's plenty of like really good kids movies that don't pander to their lesser selves, I guess. Shit. Yeah, so like, you know, rewatching it last night, I was just not bummed because I just walked away feeling the same way I do. So it's when I realized I only sincerely like 2.5, 2.25, or probably 2 1/3 Star Wars movies I really actually sincerely enjoy. Because I can't get into Return of the Jedi. Like all the stuff in the middle I just do not care about. And that's crazy. It's just not. It was like sequelitis before that was even a fucking concept. Like where it's just like just tonally wrong, and it's even tonally confused within the film itself. But anyways, I go on about fucking Return of the Jedi forever. I really could. Something like I've argued with people about since I was 15 years old, that Return of the Jedi is not that great of a movie. And if you go up against some diehard Star Wars fans, let me tell you, they do not want to have that conversation. They do not want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. But the naysayers out there, you know, it's kind of like the same effect like I had, you know, when Revenge of the Sith came out. Everybody was like, oh man, this one's actually kind of good. This one's not bad. I'm guilty of it myself. I saw it I think three times opening weekend. I saw Revenge of the Sith, 3 or 4 times. I can't even remember. But we were all in just complete denial. Like we were in denial about Episode 1 because it had been so long since Star Wars, and I was actually, you know, I was pretty young when that came out. I was like 13. So I was like, yeah, I like it. It's Star Wars. Like that's kind of like you shrug your shoulders. It's Star Wars. Like, of course it's good. It can't be bad. It has to be good. But I have much since changed my mind. Changed my mind quite a bit on that. Obviously. Yeah. Not really into the prequels. And I've watched them probably almost as many times now that I've watched the original trilogy. Because I will go back and watch them every few years. It's almost like, it's not masochism. It's not. I consider myself kind of a movie masochist. I like to watch a lot of garbage that I know is garbage. Like I've seen Man of Steel like 5 times. I don't like Man of Steel, but there's enough interesting things in there that I want to watch it. I kind of just pick it apart in my brain, and I don't know. I don't know if it's therapeutic because I don't get angry at it. I already know I don't like it. But it's almost like I'm looking for something to appreciate when it comes to those type of movies, especially like big action movie failures, like when it's genre. Like I'm always kind of looking to it. You know, I kind of want to give it a chance again. Blah blah blah. But Man of Steel, that's something actually I might do something about Batman vs Superman. So I'll talk about Man of Steel then. But anyways, moving on. So Star Wars Celebration was this past weekend. A lot of fun, actually. It was cool. It got me like excited for Star Wars again. And obviously that started with the reveal or the premiere of the new trailer. And it's a pretty good trailer. Like it's like it's nostalgia porn trailer. Like it wants you to feel like you felt when you were a kid. Like it wants you to feel the way that you feel when you remember Star Wars. When you are thinking in your brain about Star Wars and all those warm and fuzzy feelings come over you, that is what this trailer wants to impart to you. And also giving you glimpses of the future and things to get excited about. I think it's like actually a really well balanced trailer. Because when I first saw it, I was kind of like, it's alright. Like that's cool. Like it's cool to see like Han and Chewie. It's cool to hear Mark Hamill do Luke Skywalker again. It was cool to see like some of the new technology droids and like the new face of the Empire. So actually I wrote about it. I'll leave a link in the description to my blog where I wrote about it. It was one of my first impressions. Like I wrote it literally like 20 minutes after I saw the trailer. And it was just a few impressions. And I have since then watched it a bunch of times because I showed like my wife and a few of my friends, my sister and my mom's boyfriend. I was like, oh, you guys gotta check this out. Like, check it out. It's the new Star Wars. It's a new Star Wars. Like, good or bad, it's at least interesting, right? Like, it's something that it's to consider. It's because it's got such a legacy, and that is the word that I would use to describe this trailer, and I don't think I'm wrong. When I wrote that 20 minutes after, I didn't see any, because I hadn't read any other analysis or anything. How could I have? I think everybody we were all probably writing, all bloggers, and from the lowest of the low like myself to the highest of the high bloggers that were probably at, the celebration on assignment or something. So nobody had really said anything, but it was the first, that's what struck me immediately, I was like, oh, this is about legacy. This is about the original trilogy. This is about the old guard passing the torch. And it's going to reference the past and make allegories and connections to the past to the present about how things happen. But there's a lot of actually interesting things in the trailer. A lot of cool little nods and little teases. Some I find more exciting than others. The first thing, when you see that first beautiful shot of somebody on a speeder, which we were assuming is Daisy Ridley, the new protagonist, one of the new protagonists, going through Jakku, which is the name of the new planet. Everybody thought that was going to be Tatooine, and they were wrong. They were wrong, because there were so many people shit-talking, like, oh, we're going back to fucking Tatooine, and Star Wars is the biggest universe in the movie history, but it also feels so fucking small, because we only go to 3 planets. And they weren't wrong. But Jakku, while it does look like Tatooine, it's not Tatooine. But anyway, so you have that beautiful shot going through, which is actually just a gorgeous shot. Cinematography is amazing. And there's a lot of cool things. You see, which was you missed it the first time you probably saw it. You see that X-wing in the dirt in the foreground, and then in the background in the distance you see that huge Star Destroyer crash into the planet, which is cool because it's obviously referencing kind of the fallout from Return of the Jedi, like whatever happened in the 30 years since then. And that was kind of cool. That was neat. It's a neat little nod back to that this is history. Like, those movies are history now. And they're acknowledging that history in the physical, tangible world of these new films. And then the other cool, well, not the only one, but the next cool thing was the Darth Vader helmet. Wow. Darth Vader's all burnt up, fucked up helmet. I don't know if there is a skull in it. People have surmised that maybe there's Darth Vader's skull is inside of it. It's like some kind of magical token. I don't know. Which is actually, if the prequels didn't exist, they could think it's some magical religious talisman. But because of this whole fucking midichlorian shit, they ruined the Force. see this prequel. See, the more you think about them. But anyways, yeah. So, and I guess the big curiosity is like, who went and got his helmet? Like, is it something that was taken away after the funeral, or somebody have to go back and excavate it? Who got it? That's the big mystery: is who got the helmet? This is all. That's when the narration starts for the Mark Hamill. Doing the lines from Return of the Jedi about who in his family has the Force, and basically passing it down, also reinforcing the whole legacy aspect. We don't see Mark Hamill. We don't see Luke Skywalker as far as we know. There's a shot where R2 and some cloaked dude with a metal hand are hanging out by a campfire, maybe having some marshmallows or something, and, some people think that's Luke Skywalker. That's what I thought when I first saw it. I was like, oh, that's Luke Skywalker. Woo. And then in another sequence of old hands from the old cast, see Carrie Fisher's hand, or at least what we think is Carrie Fisher's hands, being passed a lightsaber, which I guess people have said that looks like Anakin's lightsaber, which also leads to some more mystery because we're under the impression that lightsaber was dropped in Empire Strikes Back. Dropped down into Cloud City, when they're in Cloud City and it gets dropped to a vent, or whatever the hell you want to call that thing. The tube, the runoff. What the hell is that for, anyways? I'm trying to think about that. Sorry, that's kind of a random thought. But yeah, so we're probably seeing Carrie Fisher's hand. Probably. And then you got the new X-Wing pilots, and they're flying, and they're having fun, and they're hooting and hollering. This dude's name is escaping me. Oscar Isaac's character. Oh, and then we see the dreaded, old-fashioned medieval-type lightsaber that people freak the fuck out about. I don't care. I think it's a cool, aesthetically cool design. It leads something different. It's also kind of indicating that, we're in a new era. If you think about weaponry and types of, in eras. From the Stone Ages to the Dark Ages to the Middle Ages. So if you think about the different kind of weaponry and how things have developed, it's not crazy to think that people would develop new versions of them, I guess. But, people are the way they are, and nerds really love static things. They like things to never fucking change and always stay the same, lest they ever be challenged and be forced to think about something from a new perspective. John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, new characters. I really like John Boyega. I was a big fan of Attack the Block a few years ago that came out. And, so I'm actually looking forward to him, a great deal in this. And then I watched him on the panel. They did the Force Awakens panel where they kind of brought up the cast and they kind of asked them a few dumb questions and stuff like that. But he is, that guy I think is going to be a really, really popular. He's going to be really famous in the next couple of years. He's super, he's funny, he's affable. You can tell he just seems like a nice, genuine, kind of down-to-earth dude. And so that's cool. So I'm, happy to see him in this movie. Then you gotta get another shot here of, I guess, the new villain. Which, obviously. And, yeah, it looks cool. It's got that kind of medieval Japan kind of feel. If you don't know this, a lot of the stuff in Star Wars, in terms of, the fighting styles and some of even the dress and the costume, is based in feudal Japan type stuff. George Lucas, big fan of Akira Kurosawa. And that was a big inspiration for him when he made Star Wars. And even the lightsabers are meant to be treated like samurai swords. That's why they have to have two hands on them when they're striking and whatnot. It's supposed to be a blade with some real heft and mass to it. The new Stormtroopers also revealed in this trailer in more detail, I guess, more than just a few flashes. They look cool. And then behind them, there's the new symbol, because the Empire is not the Empire anymore. I got a new name, and which is just something I kind of alluded to in the little piece I wrote, was that it looks like there's kind of a new faction. In the article, I was like, well, maybe it's a third faction. Maybe things are kind of splintering off, which would also be cool. But it doesn't seem like that. It seems like it's just kind of risen from the ashes in a different form, and that would be the New Order, which is reinforces kind of some of that Nazi imagery from the original trilogy, in terms of just kind of the people that worked on the Star Destroyers and whatnot. So that's what it reminds me of. Anyways, it kind of reminds me of Wolfenstein: The New Order, the new Wolfenstein in a lot of ways. It kind of just, maybe that's why I was thinking of it. But that symbol just kind of, I don't know, just makes me think of, the Nazi regime and see everybody kind of lined up like that. Yeah. Pretty cool. Oh, another cool little new character or new uniform. I don't know. I would imagine this has got to be a character, kind of the chrome tinged stormtrooper guy. I'm assuming he's got to be kind of like head honcho or something like that. Maybe these new stormtroopers their rank is delineated by like how badass their costume is. They're like, oh man, you guys got to wear the old white ones. It's kind of like if you work kind of like menial jobs and you work up your way through the ranks and like when you first start, you got to wear a uniform. Then you become a manager, you get to wear like a different colored shirt. And then once you're above that, once you're above that, you get to start wearing like button-ups and slacks. So maybe it's kind of like that. Yeah, some real world shit in the new Star Wars shit. BB-8, new character, was awesome. That was a cool reveal, actually. Not in the trailer. The most impressive reveal of that was for sure just in the celebration itself. That was really neat to see that thing just roll out on stage and actually have like a personality and articulate, and like it was really cool. I mean, because for years we've seen like practical R2D2s rather, and we've seen those been trotted out on stages and whatnot. But this thing has got like the mobility of it is crazy, and the fact that the head's not really attached to the body and it's probably using some kind of magnet system, it just looks really cool, and that's like real movie magic to me. Like that, it was just really neat to see that. And then, of course, the coup de grace. The very end of the trailer, we finally get to see a couple old friends. Han Solo and Chewbacca. Obviously looking like they're on the Millennium Falcon. And I think that's probably what they're referring to when he says, Chewie, we're home. I think they're back in the Millennium Falcon. Chewie's got his gun raised. I'm not sure. I have a feeling this is going to lead into them... Maybe like the new protagonists, the Daisy Ridley and John Boyega, like I want to say they probably steal the Millennium Falcon, not from Han Solo, from somebody, or buy it, or something, come across it, and then go find Han Solo. Yeah, so that was the trailer. It was cool. It was a cool trailer, and the celebration in itself was cool. There was a lot of cool panels. Some of the highlights being the Mark Hamill panel was really good. The guy is really funny. He's really affable. He's really just a joy to listen to. He's very sincere. Like, he's very sincere in his appreciation for the life that, like, Star Wars and the fans of Star Wars have afforded him. And, like, because he has a very, like, well, it's small in relative sense, like, but that fan base of just, like, Mark Hamill fans is really supportive of him. I've always loved Mark Hamill, from Star Wars on. As soon as I found out when I was a little kid that he was Luke Skywalker did the voice of the Joker in Batman the Animated Series. Holy shit, like that just opened my eyes, and then I became kind of a fervent, not fan, but I definitely paid attention to things that he was involved in. And even like, when I was a kid, I remember I used to watch The Flash, not the new one on CW, but the original Flash show. I think it was on ABC. I want to say it was on ABC. Or maybe CBS. Might have been CBS. ABC or CBS. Anyways. And then he played the Trickster, and like how much fun and how cool that was. So I've always just been a big fan of Mark Hamill. That was a pretty big highlight. Another one, which I did not see it streamed, but I read about it, was the Star Wars Rogue One and Star Wars Anthology Rogue One. It's the first of the spin-off movies, because they're going to do 2 spin-off movies. And the cool thing about the spin-off movies, which had been kind of rumored, is that they were going to allow people to kind of make genre films within the Star Wars universe. And this looks to be that. This is a bridge between Episode 3 and Episode 4, and there's going to be like a big heist to steal the Death Star plans. And it exists in a time when there is no Jedis. So it's just like the Rebel Alliance kind of doing its thing and trying to get by. And trying to save the world, or the universe, rather. And that sounds pretty exciting to me. They even had like a little teaser that was cool, but I mean, they didn't release an official one online. It was on somebody's cell phone, but I don't think any of them were taken down. at least as far as I know. And it was really cool. It's definitely a mood piece. The director on it is Gareth Edwards, and if you don't know who Gareth Edwards is, he directed last summer's Godzilla movie, and before that, he had done a movie called Monsters. And the connection between Monsters and Godzilla is that they are kind of like these realist takes on monster movies, or giant monster movies. So that's what Monsters was. You know, it was about like this kind of this couple that was not really a couple, but this couple of people that were going through kind of like a war-torn like Mexico and stuff, and seeing kind of the fallout of like these giant monsters existing and all this other stuff. And you kind of saw from just like this realist, like, you know, handheld camera type style on the ground, like perspective, and then he kind of brought that same kind of philosophy to Godzilla, which is a movie I actually really like, and Godzilla I actually liked more. The more I see Godzilla, the more I actually appreciate it. And I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, it needs more Godzilla. There's not enough Godzilla in Godzilla. Well, it's just like, hey man, you can't. Too much cake is not a good thing. You know, you'll get sick. But yeah, but like if he's going to take that kind of attitude and that philosophy and that tone, that seems like that's just the style of filmmaker he is. I think it's going to be really cool to see a Star Wars movie like that. And that tone trailer, which is there just primarily just set up the tone, really effectively did that. It looked like something Gareth Edwards would make. And it's just like this forest shot moving up a river, and like there's some birds and stuff flying around, and it's moving through the forest, and there's some dialogue from Obi-Wan, from the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan, kind of played over it and talking about just like the Clone Wars, or I think it was the Clone Wars, just talking about like humanity and faith and whatnot. And then it goes out and it reveals, you see like the Death Star under construction, and the Death Star is fucking huge. Like we've always known that the Death Star is huge, but when you see it juxtaposed in like scale like this, it just looks enormous. Even more so than like what you saw in like Return of the Jedi, from Endor looking up like at this giant moon-sized space station. So it was really cool. That was really cool. Actually, because they've announced two of these movies. The other one is going to be directed by Josh Trank, and we don't really know anything about it. There's a rumor that it's somehow like bounty hunter focused, like a Boba Fett type movie. Well, it may not have Boba Fett. It's going to exist in the same world that Boba Fett existed in, or maybe it'll be about the Mandalorians, which is the race that Boba Fett is. And it seems like they said he was sick, and that's why he didn't show up, but I have a feeling there's got to be a little bit more to the story than that. Maybe he's even getting kicked off of it. I've also heard a lot of rumors that he's very difficult to work with. Josh Trank directed Chronicle, and his newest movie that's coming out this summer is the new Fantastic Four, which also released a trailer, which looks pretty good. Doesn't look bad. Doesn't look great either. It's almost just, I don't even know what to say about it. Like, who knows if it'll be good or bad. But he was absent from it, so that was kind of a bummer. The thing that kind of sucked the most about, like, because I watch it on the stream, obviously I didn't go to Anaheim and go to the celebration, which would be cool to someday go. I don't know when that's going to be, but someday hopefully I'll get to go. But anyways, so I watched the streams powered by Verizon and StarWars.com, which they just said ad nauseum over and over and over again. I know that was not the choice of the host to have to constantly say that, but like I don't understand like any corporate entity or producers be like, hey, remember to say this is from StarWars.com powered by Verizon. Remember to say that over and over and over and over again. I don't understand that being an effective marketing thing. But anyways, those actually, and like, so they have the panels, which was like kind of the meat of it. It's what you really want to see. But they only showed maybe like eight of the panels, and there was probably a lot. I know there was a lot more. I believe there was panels like all day long of this thing, all different ones, and so they would have to like kind of fill time in between, and it was mostly pointless and lame. Unfortunately, not even like when they would have like they had like three of the authors behind like the vast majority of the most popular like Star Wars books, and while I've never really read any of those books, like I was just interested to hear them like their stories as writers working like in that kind of industry, I guess, like kind of like these extended universe books that they don't have complete control of. They're not like hired and they can pitch stories and whatnot, but they have to adhere to some type of like universe Bible and stuff like that, so they don't like contradict each other and whatnot. At least it used to be like that, because all extended universe stuff used to be considered fiction, or not fiction, canon. It's obviously fiction. It used to be considered canon up until Disney bought Lucasfilms, and that is no longer the case. It's just the movies, and I think like maybe Star Wars Rebels, the cartoon series, I think that's canon. I don't even think Clone Wars is canon, that cartoon series. But Star Wars Rebels is, from what I understand, is canon to the new films and whatnot, moving forward. But yeah, but they basically give them like, I don't know, like 4 minutes of lip service, and that was it. Ask them some dumb questions like, was it cool to see the trailer? Yeah, it was fucking cool. Like, you don't need to ask every single person that walks up to you. Like, I don't know. So a lot of it was like basically infomercials for Star Wars merchandise and a lot of that stuff, and it was kind of pointless. It even got grating at some point. And that really has nothing to do with the people that put it on. It's just like the nature of that beast. It's like, what the fuck do we do to fill time? We have to like broadcast. They did almost 10 hours a day. So you're doing it for 10 hours a day, and there isn't really a hell of a lot. Like, I just seemed like undercooked and underplanned. And it was like, well, maybe you should just do the panels, but then maybe they didn't have permission to do all the panels, and I don't know. Another highlight was during the Ian McDiarmid panel, which was cool. The Emperor. He did reading from Return of the Jedi Shakespeare, the Shakespeareization of, like, you know, they've been doing Star Wars Shakespeare, and like there's a few other like popular properties they've also kind of translated into not Old English, but into verse. And they kind of rewrote the scripts and whatnot in Shakespearean language. And he did one of the monologues, the Emperor's monologues, in Shakespeare verse, Star Wars style. It was cool. It was actually really, really entertaining. Seems like a really nice guy, really fun actor. That was cool. I watched some of the Billy D. Williams one. He seemed like kind of lost. I know that sounds so mean and terrible, but he just seemed like he was like, I don't really know why I'm here. I mean, I'm happy to be here, but I spent a good amount of time talking to him about his experience on Dancing with the Stars, if that is any indication of how that went. And then last but not least of the panels that I watched was the Carrie Fisher panel. And oh my god, what a hot mess. And I say that in the best way possible. Carrie Fisher is a real trip. Like, she is unabashedly Carrie Fisher, and she's very, like, I don't know, says what's on her mind. She's very honest, very sincere type looking person. She even had some fun interaction with some of the fans. One of them kind of creepy, one of them really endearing. And that was cool. It was fun. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on Star Wars in general, I guess. I was just going to talk about the trailer and Star Wars Celebration, but I kind of just word vomited a whole bunch of shit. But anyways, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Sean. I will talk to you next time I got something to talk about. If you don't mind, if you could maybe subscribe, like, share, follow me on Twitter, check out the blog, which is something I always try to promote. I do write, and I'm trying to get back into it, be more consistent. And yeah, so it'd be awesome if you guys could come out and maybe check out the blog every once in a while, because I write a lot mostly about movies, but I also do cover video games occasionally and do like maybe some like analysis and stuff like that of stories and whatnot. I did one about The Last of Us like a couple years ago that I think was pretty good. But anyways, yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody, and I'll check you on the flip side.